The warning signalet began with silence, no distress calls. No last messages, just nothing. The colony world of Vesta Prime had been full of life one day and empty the next. Sensors showed the same story for 2 more human settlements, quiet, dark, cold. It was as if someone had erased them from space itself. In the secure command room of Earth's Orbital Defense HQ, Admiral Chun stared at the holomap. 3 red markers, 3 lost worlds blinked in the dark. They didn't just attack, Chun said softly. They erased the evidence. Around the table, senior officers exchanged uneasy glances. Everyone knew who was responsible. The Zorith Dominion, an ancient expansionist empire that had already swallowed dozens of alien civilizations. But until now, they had never come this close to human space. 2 hours later, Captain Drake Voss walked into the war room. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and carried the calm confidence of someone who had been in far too many battles to be scared easily. Chun didn't waste time. Drake, the Zorith fleet is moving toward Terran space. Our long-range probes confirm. At least 100 ships, cruisers, battleships, and carriers. Drake studied the map. That's not a raid. That's an invasion. Yes, and we're sending you to meet them. Drake raised an eyebrow. With what fleet? Chun tapped a control, and the holo image shifted to show a single massive warship, sleek, angular, and bristling with weapon ports. The Titan's Wrath, Chun said. She's the most advanced warship humanity has ever built. Experimental weapons. Armor plating they've never seen before. Slip-jump drive. Drake smirked. And you're giving her to me? You're the only one reckless enough to use her to full potential. The official orders were simple. Observe and report. Do not engage unless fired upon. But Drake knew the truth. If the Zorith fleet reached human space, entire planets would burn before Earth could respond. On the bridge of the Titan's Wrath, his crew waited. There was Lieutenant Marinholt, sharp-eyed and always 2 steps ahead on tactics. Commander Elias Rhine, calm as stone, running engineering. And a dozen others who had volunteered without hesitation, knowing they might not come back. The ship's launch was quiet. No cheering crowds, no speeches. Only the deep rumble of engines as the Titan's Wrath slid from the orbital dock into the black void of space. Drake stood at the forward viewport, watching the stars stretch as the slip-jump drive engaged. In seconds, they crossed like years. Emerging near the edge of the Helios Rift, a vast region of empty space where the Zorith fleet was expected to pass. Power down non-essential systems, Drake ordered. We go dark. They can't see. What they can't detect. The lights on the bridge dimmed. The hum of the engines faded to a low whisper. Hours passed. The crew moved with quiet precision, running silent scans. Then, just past the 4-hour mark, the ship's long-range sensors caught a faint pulse, a rhythm too deliberate to be natural. Holt leaned over the console. Captain, we've got movement. Multiple contacts. Range, 1.6 million kilometers and closing. Drake stepped forward. Let's see them. The sensor display lit up, painting the black void with enemy signatures, dozens, and hundreds appearing one after another. The Zorith fleet, they moved like a wall of steel and fire. War banners of crimson and black shimmered on their hulls. A warning to all who looked at them. Their formation was perfect, every ship moving as if part of a single living creature. Holt's voice was tight. Sir, that's more than 100 ships. Drake didn't flinch. Numbers aren't everything. Rain glanced over from engineering. They will be if they see us. The humans watched in tense silence as the fleet passed through the rift. For a few minutes, it seemed their stealth systems would hold. But then a sharp ping echoed through the comm systems. A signal, alien in tone, repeating the same message in multiple languages. This is Commander Volkar of the Zorith Dominion. Unidentified vessel. Power down immediately. You are in. Violation of Dominion space, Holt whispered. They found us. Drake smiled faintly. Good. Saves us the trouble of introductions. He stepped to the center of the bridge, hands clasped behind his back. Bring weapons online. Target their lead cruisers. Holt hesitated. Sir, your orders were. I know my orders, Drake cut in. But those orders didn't account for what happens if they reach Earth. We stop them here, or we watch the colonies burn. The crew exchanged glances and nodded. One by one, the systems came alive, the railgun coils glowing, missile bays opening, energy shields humming to life. Drake took one last look at the massive enemy fleet. Then he said, in a voice as steady as cold iron, battle stations. Let's show them what one human warship can do. The first railgun round slid into the chamber, ready to fire. The Zorith fleet adjusted formation, weapons powering up, the silence before the storm was over. War was seconds away. Contact in the dark. The Zorith fleet loomed ahead, a wall of black metal lit by the cold glow of weapon arrays. From the bridge of the Titan's Wrath, Captain Drake Voss studied them with calm eyes, though every instinct told him this was the kind of fight no sane man would start. Still holding stealth? He asked. Lieutenant Holt checked her console. Barely. Their scans are sweeping. One more pass, and they'll have us locked. Drake nodded. Then we make the first move. The order was quiet, but final. Railgun. Target the lead destroyer. Fire on my mark. The crew moved with a silent urgency. The Titan's Wrath's primary railgun hummed as magnetic coils charged, glowing a dull blue along the barrel. Rain's voice came from engineering. Weapon at full charge. Firing solution. Locked. Drake let the moment hang for just a second longer, just enough for the enemy to think they still had the advantage. Mark. The shot ripped through space faster than the eye could follow. In less than a heartbeat, the lead destroyer in the Zorith formation vanished in a cloud of molten debris. The round didn't stop there. It tore through the second ship, then punctured a third before losing speed. The bridge went silent for a moment, even among the humans. Then Holt exhaled. 3 kills in one shot. Drake's mouth curved into the faintest smile. Let's make it 4 next time. The alien response was instant. The fleet's tight formation broke apart as plasma cannons lit the dark, blue-green fire streaking toward the Titan's Wrath. Shields at 70%. Rain reported after the first barrage, holding steady. Another wave of fire came in, but the dreadnought's armor layered with experimental impact gel absorbed the hits with minimal damage. Drake glanced at Holt. They brought knives to a gunfight. The Titan's Wrath returned fire. Missile pods opened along her flanks, unleashing swarms of guided warheads. Each one found its mark, bursting apart frigates and gunships like glass in a storm dot. In less than 2 minutes, 8 Zorith ships were gone. The rest of the fleet pulled back, regrouping into a defensive shell around their flagship. They're scared, Holt said, scanning the tactical map. Not scared enough, Drake replied. Bring the slip jump online. The crew stiffened. Using the slip jump this close to enemy ships was dangerous. One miscalculation, and they could reappear inside an asteroid, or, worse, inside the enemy flagship. Rain's voice came from engineering again. Drive is hot, ready to jump. Do it, Drake ordered. The stars outside blurred. For an instant, everything stretched into streaks of light. Then the Titan's Wrath reappeared, behind the enemy fleet. Targets acquired, Holt said, eyes wide with disbelief. The Zorith ships scrambled to turn their weapons around, but the dreadnought was already moving. Railguns roared, tearing through the rear guard. Pulse cannons spat lines of white fire. punching clean holes through heavy cruisers. The alien formation collapsed in seconds. On the Zoreth flagship, Commander Valkar barked orders, his voice sharp with rage. How can one ship do this? Surround them, crush them. But every time they moved to corner the humans, the Titan's wrath jumped again, slipping in and out of real space, hitting from new angles before the enemy could react. It wasn't a battle. It was a hunt. Back on the bridge, Holt grinned despite herself. Sir, they're falling apart. We've taken out nearly a third of their force. Drake's eyes stayed on the tactical display. And we finished the rest. For the next 4 minutes, the dreadnought became a phantom, jumping, firing, vanishing, and reappearing where the enemy was weakest. The Zoreth fleet tried everything. Heavy barrages, shield walls, swarm drones. But nothing could pin the humans down. Finally, only a handful of ships remained around the flagship. The enemy's comm channel opened. Valkar's voice thundered in accented Terran standard. Human captain, you have made your point. Withdraw. Now, and your species may live. Drake's answer was simple. No deals. The final salvo came without warning. The Titan's wrath fired all weapons, railguns, pulse cannons, missiles in a single devastating wave. When the glare faded, the flagship was split in half, its molten core spilling into space. The battle was over. But as the wreckage drifted, Holt noticed something. A small Zoreth corvette had powered up its engines and jumped away. They left? Survivors, she said. Drake didn't look surprised. Good. Let them tell the story. He turned to the crew, voice steady. This was just the first round. The Dominion will be back. And next time, they'll bring everything they have. The first shot's aftermath. The battlefield was a graveyard of drifting steel. Hull fragments spun slowly in the void. Shattered weapon pods tumbled end over end, their lights flickering until they went dark. The only sound on the Titan's wraths. Bridge was the low hum of the ship's systems and the faint ping of debris striking the shields. Lieutenant Holt's voice broke the silence. Confirmed kills. 87 enemy vessels. Remaining Zoreth contacts, 0. Commander Rain leaned back in his chair. We just erased an entire fleet in under 9 minutes. Drake Lost didn't smile. His eyes stayed on the tactical display. Not the entire fleet. 1 corvette escaped. That means a report is already on its way to the Dominion. The mood in the crew was a mix of pride and unease. The victory was total, but every officer on the bridge knew the fight had only bought them time. The Zoreth were not a species to forgive humiliation. Drake turned to Holt. Start a sweep. I want every piece of wreckage scanned. Priority on intact data cores and weapon systems. Aye, Captain. For the next hour, drones fanned out from the Titan's wrath, weaving through the wreckage. The view from the bridge showed the scale of the destruction. Massive battleship hulls split open like tin cans, smaller frigates broken into shards. More than once, the drones reported faint life signs in the wreckage, but Drake gave the same order each time. Log the location. We'll let rescue ships deal with them. Our job is the evidence. Then, one of the drones pinged a high priority. Find. Holt zoomed in on the live feed. A blackened Zoreth cruiser, still intact enough for its core systems to be sealed off from space. Inside, the drone scanners picked up an encrypted data vault. Rain whistled. That's not a weapons cache. That's command data. Drake's voice was calm. Get it aboard. Secure hold 3. Full isolation. While the recovery teams worked, a new transmission came through direct from Earth's Orbital Defense HQ. Admiral Chun's face appeared on the main screen. Captain Voss, we're receiving your battle telemetry. I hope you understand the scale of what you've done. Drake met her eyes. The alternative was letting them reach human space. Chun's tone sharpened. You've destroyed the largest Zorath task force on record. The entire galaxy will hear about this within days. That makes you a hero to some, and a target to others. By the time the Titan's Wrath's drones returned, they had brought in not only the encrypted vault, but also several pieces of alien tech unfamiliar weapon components, strange shield emitters, and a device that pulsed with an unknown sea. Odd blue glow. Holt frowned at the last one. It's giving off a signal, not to us, but somewhere else. Drake's jaw tightened. Shut it down, now. Rain's hands flew across the console. Done, but if it sent anything before that, we might have just told someone exactly where we are. Drake ordered the crew to prepare for immediate departure. The ship's engines rumbled back to full power, and the wreckage began to fade from view as the dreadnought turned toward friendly space. But before they could jump, the comm officer called out, "Incoming transmission. Not from Earth. And not from the Zorath." The voice that filled the bridge was deep and slow, speaking in heavily accented Terran standard. "Human warship, we observed your battle. We have information you will want, but you must come to us. Alone." Holt glanced at Drake. "Sounds like a trap." Drake nodded. "Probably is. But if they watched the fight, they may know what. The Zorath are planning next." He keyed the comm. "Transmit coordinates." The reply came instantly. "Already done. Do not bring your fleet. Do not delay." The channel went dead. For a long moment, the bridge was silent. Then Rain said, "We don't have to answer that call, Captain. We could head straight back to Earth, hand over the data vault, and let Command handle it." Drake shook his head. "Command will lock the vault away for months before opening. If this contact really knows what's coming, we need that intel now?" Holt's brow furrowed. "And if it's an ambush?" Drake finally smiled, just a little. "Then we give them the same lesson we gave the Zorath never underestimate. A human warship." The Titan's Wrath's slip-jump drive began to charge. Outside, the graveyard of the Zorath fleet drifted in silence. Somewhere in that darkness, a surviving enemy ship raced to deliver news of the defeat to the Dominion's core worlds. And deep within the wreckage they left behind, faint lights blinked inside a damaged escape pod lights that were steadily activating something far more dangerous than a distress. Beacon dot turning the tide, the Titan's Wrath emerged from slip-jump space into an empty stretch of stars. No planets, no stations, no sign of the contact who had sent the mysterious message. Holt scanned the sector. Nothing on sensors, not even debris. Drake stood at the center of the bridge, arms folded. "They told us to come alone. That means they're watching us right now." Minutes passed in silence. Then a distortion rippled across the starfield like a heat wave in space. From the shimmer emerged a massive vessel, unlike anything the crew had ever seen. Its hull looked grown, not built, with flowing curves and living patterns that pulsed faintly like veins under skin. "Reading no standard drive signatures," Holt said. "And, Captain, I think parts of that ship are alive." A deep voice came over comms. "Human warship Titan's Wrath. We are the Vera Ascendancy. You have drawn the attention of the galaxy." Drake replied, "You sent the coordinates. Start talking." The voice continued, calm but edged with urgency. "The Zorath Dominion's fleet you destroyed was not their full strength. It was a test. They wished to see your response, your speed, your weapons." Holt's brow furrowed. 100 ships was a test? "Yes," the Vera speaker said. "The main Dominion fleet is 20 times that size, and it is already on the move." Drake's jaw tightened. "Then why call us here?" "You could have sent a warning from anywhere." "Because we know how to stop them," the Vera replied. "But we cannot do it alone. And your own leaders will not listen." The alien ship projected a hologram into the Titan's Wrath's bridge, a vast region of space, marked with strange red zones. These are their staging grounds. Destroy 3 of them, and their invasion will be delayed by years. Rain from engineering spoke up. That's nice and all, but those staging grounds are deep in Dominion territory. We'd be jumping straight into the lion's mouth. Drake stared at the map. Why tell us? You have ships. Our fleets are faster. The Vera admitted, but not as decisive. We have seen your battle. 1 warship used with precision can do more than 10 fleets if the enemy fears it. Drake let the silence hang, then asked, "And what do you want in return?" "Only this," the Vera voice said. "If you succeed, remember who gave you the key to your survival." Before Drake could answer, Holt's console lit up red. Captain Jump signatures, multiple. They found us. The tactical display bloomed with Zorith signatures, 2 destroyers and a cruiser, already bearing down on their position. Yet Drake didn't hesitate. Shields up, railgun to full charge. Helm, break contact with the Vera and put us between them. And the enemy. The alien cruiser opened fire, first streams of plasma lancing through the void. The Titan's Wrath rolled, absorbing the hits on reinforced armor plating. The railgun fired, splitting 1 destroyer in half before it could turn. The Vera ship didn't move like a normal vessel. It flowed. Its hull twisted and reshaped mid-battle, firing strange bursts of golden energy that disintegrated chunks of the second destroyer. Within minutes, only the Zorith cruiser remained. Drake hailed it. "You have 10 seconds to leave before we make an example out of you." The enemy didn't answer, only jumped out of the sector. Holt turned to Drake. "That's going straight into their reports." "Good," Drake said. "Let them worry about what comes next." When the field was clear, the Vera transmitted 1 last set of coordinates. "These lead to the first staging ground. If you destroy it, the others will fall easier. But move quickly. The Dominion will fortify after this day." The Vera ship began to fade back into its distortion field. "Wait," Drake called. "Why help us at all?" The voice replied, distant now. "Because if the Dominion conquers you, they will come for us next. And we find you amusing." With that, they were gone. Drake stood at the viewport, staring at the coordinates. They weren't just behind enemy lines. They were in the heart of Zorith space. Holt stepped beside him. "We really doing this?" Drake's answer was simple. "We didn't come this far to just defend. We're going to make them wish they'd stayed in their own corner of the galaxy." The Titan's Wrath's engines roared to life. Ahead, the first target waited. Behind them, in the wreckage of the battle, faint signals from the escaped Zorith cruiser pulsed back to their command. And far away, the Dominion's War Council listened in silence, then began mobilizing a fleet the likes of which humanity had never seen. The breaking point, the Titan's Wrath dropped out of slip jump at the edge of a blood-red nebula. Somewhere inside that swirling gas was the first Zorith staging ground, one of the 3 the Vera had marked for destruction. Lieutenant Holt's voice was steady but low. "We're at the coordinates. No enemy ships on sensors. Yet." Drake studied the nebula through the viewport. The clouds twisted and rolled, lightning flashing deep inside like the pulse of some enormous living thing. "They're in there," he said. "They're hiding in the storm." The dreadnought pushed forward. Visibility dropped to almost nothing. The gas messed with sensors, and the static crackle echoed through the ship's hull. Then a shadow moved in the mist, too big to be debris. Holt's eyes widened. "Contact. Make that multiple contacts." The shadows became ships. A lot of them. Cruisers, carriers, and a massive orbital station anchored to a cluster of jagged asteroids. "Staging ground." Rain's voice came from engineering. Captain, we're outnumbered at least 20-1. Drake didn't blink. Numbers don't matter. Position does. Helm, get us above the station. Weapons, target the carriers first. They'll be full of fighters. The Titan's wrath. Dove into the fight. Railguns boomed, tearing through the first carrier before it could even launch. Missiles streaked into the second, detonating fuel pods in a chain of blinding explosions. But the Zorth were ready. From the asteroid base, heavy ion cannons lit up, slamming into the Titan's Wrath's shields. Shields down to 60%. Holt called. Dozens of fighters swarmed from the remaining carrier, peppering the hull with rapid-fire plasma. Rain's voice was grim. "We can't keep this up forever, Captain." Drake's eyes stayed on the tactical map. "We don't need forever. We just need a hole." That hole came from an unexpected source. One of the enemy cruisers strayed too close to a lightning-charged gas pocket. The resulting detonation knocked out half its systems and blew open a gap in the fighter screen. Helm punched through that opening. Drake ordered. The dreadnought surged forward, slicing through debris. With the station in sight, Drake gave the order. "All railguns, fire at will. Target the station's reactor core." The first salvo punched into the asteroid base, sending massive chunks spinning into the nebula. But before they could land the killing blow, a deep alarm rang through the Titan's Wrath. Multiple slip-jump signatures. Holt shouted. "Reinforcements, 8 destroyers and 2 battleships." The bridge fell silent for a split second. Then Drake said, "Good. Saves us hunting them later." The new arrivals wasted no time. The battleships fired together. Their combined plasma barrage slamming into the dreadnought's shields and dropping them to 30% in seconds. Rain gritted his teeth. "Shields failing, Captain." "Divert all power to forward guns," Drake replied. "If we're going down, we're taking their base with us." The Titan's Wrath charged headlong at the asteroid station. Point defense. Cannons shredded incoming fighters. The railguns hammered the reactor's armor, each hit sending ripples of blue light across its surface. One more shot. That's all it would take. Then the unthinkable happened. One of the Zorth battleships rammed them. The impact threw half the bridge crew from their stations. Sparks rained from the ceiling. Engineering breach on Deck 6. Rain called. Hull integrity dropping. Drake hauled himself upright. "Ignore the battleship. Finish the station." Holt's voice was ragged as she locked the final firing solution. "All guns ready, Captain." Drake slammed his hand down on the console. Fire. The railguns fired as one. The asteroid base's core erupted, a sun-bright explosion tearing through the nebula. The shockwave ripped apart nearby ships, throwing the rest into chaos. Now the Titan's Wrath limped out of the blast zone. Shields gone, armor scarred, but engines still burning. The surviving Zorth ships didn't pursue, they scattered, retreating into the nebula. On the bridge, no one spoke for a long moment. Then Holt looked at Drake. "That's one down." Drake nodded. 2 to go. But deep inside the nebula, in the wreckage of the destroyed station, a black box transmitter blinked to life, sending a tight beam. Message straight to the Dominion's War Council. Carried only 4 words. Human dreadnought. Unstoppable. The silence after the Titan's Wrath limped out of the red nebula into the calm emptiness of deep space. Behind them, the light of the destroyed Zorth staging ground faded into the distance, swallowed by the darkness. The crew worked in silence, every movement slow and deliberate. Lieutenant Holt broke the quiet first. "Damage control reports, shields offline, port railgun offline, hull breach sealed on Deck 6. We can still fight, but not for long." Drake Voss stood at the viewport, arms crossed. "We're not fighting now. We're going home." The slip jump back to human space felt longer than usual. Every minute, Holt ran another scan, expecting pursuit. But nothing came. No Zorath ships. No distress calls. Just silence. When the Titan's wrath finally emerged above Earth's blue horizon, the relief on the bridge was almost visible. "Send priority signal to Orbital Defense HQ," Drake ordered. "Tell them the first staging ground is gone." In the HQ's secure chamber, Admiral Chun's face appeared on the main screen. Her expression was unreadable. "Captain Voss, you've destroyed a major Zorath supply hub. Impressive. And reckless." Drake's tone stayed calm. "Reckless kept them from using it. Now they have one less fleet to throw at us." Chun leaned forward. "And now they have one more reason to throw everything at us. We've intercepted chatter from the Dominion's War Council. They're calling you the Black Blade of Terra." Holt muttered under her breath. "Sounds cool." Chun ignored her. "The title isn't praise, Captain. It's a target. They're preparing a response larger than anything we've seen." Drake asked the question he already knew the answer to. "How large?" Chun tapped a command, and the screen filled with fleet data. Icons for hundreds of Zorath ships arranged in attack formations. Estimated force, over 2,000 vessels. Their largest mobilization in a century. They're coming straight for human space. The bridge went silent. Even Drake felt the weight of those numbers. Later, in the ready room, Holt joined Drake. "So, they know exactly where we are. They know we can hurt them. And now they're coming with an armada that could burn half the sector." Drake looked at her, a faint smirk on his face. "Good. That means we don't have to look for them." Holt frowned. "You're not seriously thinking. I'm thinking we can't just wait here and hope Earth's defenses hold. We take." The fight to them hit their second staging ground before that armada even leaves port. The plan was dangerous. The Titan's wrath was damaged, its crew exhausted, and the next target was even deeper in Dominion space. But Drake knew waiting would only make things worse. When he brought the plan to Admiral Chun, her answer was immediate. "Denied. You're to remain in dock for repairs and debriefing." Drake leaned forward. "By the time repairs are done, they'll be at our doorstep. If you want to save human lives, you let us go now." Chun's voice hardened. "You're outnumbered, outgunned, and your crew needs rest." Drake held her gaze. "We'll rest when they stop coming." That night, docked in high orbit, the Titan's wrath sat under repair crew's lights. But in the shadows of the hangar, Drake met with Rain and Holt. "We're leaving before dawn. Quietly. If command won't send us, we send ourselves." Rain raised an eyebrow. "That's desertion." Drake shook his head. "That's survival." Before sunrise, the Dreadnought's engines lit up, pulling her from dock under the cover of a scheduled maintenance cycle. By the time Orbital Defense realized she was gone, the Titan's wrath was already slipping into deep space. Holt looked back at Earth one last time. "Think we'll see her again before this is over?" Drake didn't answer. He just set his eyes on the stars ahead. Hours later, in the Dominion's War Council chamber, alien commanders reviewed a new data feed, the escape of the human warship. One spoke in a low, cold voice. "They're coming to us." Another smiled thinly. "Then we make sure they never return." The message the Titan's wrath slipped out of jump space on the edge of a massive star system. Ahead, the second Zorath staging ground hung in the black, a sprawling fortress of steel and rock orbiting a dying sun. It bristled with weapons. Shipyards circled it like rings, filled with destroyers and cruisers still under construction. Lieutenant Holt stared at the tactical readout. "That's a lot of guns, Captain." Drake Voss didn't flinch. "Good. Means we won't have to go looking for a fight." They had no backup, no escape plan. Just one warship against the heart of the Dominion's invasion force. "Bring railguns online," Drake ordered. Load every missile we have left. Once we fire, there's no turning back. Rain's voice came over comms from engineering. Weapons at full charge. All systems as ready as they'll ever be. The Titan's wrath plunged forward. At first, the Zorth didn't react, perhaps thinking the humans were a scouting vessel. Then the first missile barrage struck the outer defense grid, turning entire gun platforms into clouds of molten debris. The fortress came alive. Dozens of ships broke from dock, weapons blazing. Plasma fire lit the void like a storm. The dreadnought danced through the chaos. Railguns tore through enemy cruisers. Missiles found weak points in station armor. But for every ship they destroyed, 2 more seemed to appear. Holt's voice cut through the noise. Shields down to 40%. Drake didn't hesitate. Keep firing. We didn't come here to leave them standing. They pushed closer to the station's core, its massive reactor ring glowing against the dying sun. But just as they lined up the final shot, the stars shifted. Slip jump signatures. Dozens of them. The Dominion Armada had arrived. Rain's voice was grim. Captain, that's the fleet, the 2,000-ship fleet. Drake looked at Holt, then at the incoming swarm on the tactical display. And it's time to send the message. He keyed the ship-wide channel. This is Captain Drake Voss. We're not here to survive this fight. We're here to make sure the galaxy knows that one human warship can stand against an empire. If you're on this crew, you've already made history. Let's finish it. The Titan's wrath drove straight into the enemy armada. Railguns roared, punching through battleships. Pulse cannons shredded fighter swarms. The dreadnought twisted and dove between capital ships, striking from point-blank range. For every hit they took, they gave back tenfold. But the numbers were too great. Hull breaches spread. Fires roared in the lower decks. Holt shouted over the alarms. Captain, we can't hold much longer. Drake's voice was steady. Then we make the last shot count. Rain overload the main railgun. Put everything into it. Rain hesitated. That will burn the barrel out. Maybe take half the ship with it. Drake smiled faintly. Good. Thing were already in the middle of their fleet. The railgun charged, glowing white-hot. Every alarm on the ship screamed. The Zorth must have realized what was coming. Ships pulled back, shields flaring. Target the station's core, Drake ordered. Fire. The shot tore through the void like a spear of light. It struck the reactor, ring dead center. 4. A heartbeat. Nothing happened. Then the station erupted in a blinding explosion. A shockwave tearing through the surrounding ships. The blast lit the dying sun, painting the battlefield in white fire. When the light faded, the Titan's wrath drifted scarred, broken but still alive. The surviving Zorth ships held their distance. No one moved. No one fired. Then the comm crackled with an open channel. It was a Zorth commander's voice, low and grudging. Human warship, you have your victory. Take your dead and go. The Dominion will remember this. Drake replied simply, that's the point. Days later, the transmission from the battle spread across the galaxy. It showed the Titan's wrath alone, tearing through an armada and destroying a fortress. To some, it was proof that humans were dangerous. To others, it was hope that the Dominion could be stopped. In every corner of known space, one phrase began to echo. It was over before it began. Back on Earth, Drake stood on the bridge, looking at the stars. We've shown them what one ship can do, he said quietly to Holt. Now imagine what happens when it's not just one. Stars ahead seemed brighter. The war wasn't over. But the galaxy would never again think of humanity as weak.